The Nigerian consumer market is one of the most misunderstood markets in the world, more so with recent policy changes of government. Recently, we set out to have a better understanding of the Nigerian consumer market across the 6 geopolitical zones, 36 states, and across socioeconomic strata. This gave birth to the Nigerian Consumer Outlook Report 2025, a report that gives us insight into the consumer behavior, the purchasing pattern, and the pattern of decision making for the average consumer in Nigeria.
I'd like to ask you a question, and the question is, what is something you believed in from the early stages of your career that you still find relevant today?
There are a number.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I actually believe in grinding, because when I say grinding, going the extra mile to acquire skills and knowledge. Do you understand? No matter the environment you find yourself part-time, what you know is what you know. And where you will need it, you may never know. You understand? And that has always kept me going. In this generation, you find young people say, I don't want to do this thing. Let me just use it as a stopgap. So they are not really giving their best, to whatever they are doing. I say you are shortchanging yourself. Because even if you are looking for the next opportunity, if you acquire this skill set, you will be that next person that only knows how to do this over there. Do you understand? And that way may count for an advantage for you. So your experience, your knowledge are things that you must go after and get. And the second thing I always go for is quality relationships. In every aspect of my career, I don't want to leave any door closed. No matter how toxic you may think the environment is, because I've come to realize that globally, and even more specifically in our environment, opportunities are relationship related. People love to help their friends. People love to, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
You understand? People love to, move opportunities. So no matter, for me, I typically say it this way: if you leave any employment with the door closed, you've left your salary behind.
Interesting. That's a very
Because
interesting way to put
Because
it.
the salary for the employment is not just the pay. The experience you gather on the employment, and then the relationship you built. Those are more even valuable than the actual monthly ticket that you
which you finish spending anyway.
So that intangible that you take out of that employment, you must be able to access it at any point that you need to do that. So I was able to only make that decision to step out of my former employment because I know the quality of my relationship can actually make things happen.
My first question to you will be, how would you summarize Nigeria's consumer landscape in one sentence?
Okay, thank you very much, Akeju, to Watson, for having me on this podcast.
Okay.
And to respond to that question, I would say the Nigeria consumer landscape is such that is a bit dynamic in the sense that, everybody in the landscape, regardless of your, social class, is looking for the opportunity to be able to enjoy, luxury at every opportunity. So that then brings the decision down to their purchasing power, you understand? And so the environment is largely determined by the purchasing power, of the people. And if purchasing power increases, then you see people go for more luxury options. Nigerians are people that typically loves to upgrade their lifestyle at every promotion, every achievement, and that discipline of holding back is a culture we are learning, you understand? But naturally, the environment is such that where you have the purchasing power, you go for the next, grade of, products. Yeah.
Interesting. So we're a very aspirational market.
Aspiration.
Very, very aspirational. It's been almost 2 years since the removal of fuel subsidy. I think one policy that has impacted the Nigeria consumer in a way that we've not had in many years. How do you think this has impacted the consumer spending pattern?
Okay, so when the new government or the government we currently running, came in, they came with some economic shocks, and it wasn't supposed to be a shock because maybe people didn't fully appreciate how it's going to impact their lifestyle or their purchasing power, as the case may be. Because I could recall very vividly that during the elections, almost all the candidates were advocating those policy decisions, and very few candidates were of the opinion that they won't go in that direction. And but maybe the candidate themselves, including the general masses, didn't fully understand how well it's going to eat deep. So some people have expressed different opinion, maybe not a conversation for today, whether both policies should have be staggered, or whether both should be at the same time. Different opinions. Some people have the school of thought that just muffle the water at the same time and let everything settle together, rather than but that's a conversation for another time. That shock was very major, you understand, because in the economy we experience inflation in their multiples, over 500% inflation in some segment of the economy. In fact, some segment experience in excess of 1,000, inflation, if you look at the numbers from the MBS, and what that means is that inflationary pressure we typically affect everybody, meaning that purchasing power will drop. Some people will lose their job, because some business can no longer survive, and the consequent, result of those economic policies, coupled with the fact that, the government was not quick enough to respond in providing stimulus that could really help people stabilize, their spending capability, that led to, Nigerians struggling with just ensuring that they get the basic essentials, you understand? And essentials mean, have you eaten? Can you pay for your drugs? And can you pay your students' school fees? Anything apart from that, because inflationary impact has actually taken some of those things beyond the reach of people. But we begin to see recovery again, and maybe that will also affect the way spending goes. But what we've seen, and I will use this opportunity to also appreciate Seed for doing this research, this original data, collating this original data about what we have been guessing is what is happening in the economy. And the truth is that many non-essential businesses actually struggled in the last 2 years.
Yeah. And thank you for that. The Nigerian Consumer Outlook report is a report that was born out of the need for us to really understand what is driving the Nigerian consumer. You have a market of 200 million people. That's a great number. A very active market. Average, age is about 18, 17, 18, so it's
that is gold.
It's gold in itself. That's a very productive population. We're blessed with a lot of mineral resources, but we remain a very complex and dynamic market, because you have this strata of socioeconomic class that oscillates, due to certain government policies, certain lifestyle, the factors that affect how they move through the socioeconomic class, very, very, very widely. And so I really wanted to know, you've gone through the Nigerian Consumer Outlook report, and you're one of the first set of people to go through it. And one of the things that the report speaks to is that Nigerians are planning to spend less on non-essentials, right? But there are certain things that are very interesting in that report that originally probably would not easily put in the category of essential goods, but they're now top priority in Nigeria, right? But let me first ask you, how should businesses in sectors that are non-priority, how should these businesses adapt to the reality of today in the Nigerian market, or the reality of the Nigerian consumer today?
So I think every economy is actually not static, no matter how stable the economy is, it is never static, So economics itself is a moving concern, And surviving in any economy is still the same strategy that we needs to be deployed, even in super unstable environments or volatile environments. In the sense that businesses are typically expected to be agile. And when I say agile, meaning you are responding to the market behavior. You look into the market and say, okay, what is the market dynamics at this current time? And then you tweak your approach, your offerings and the likes, to meet what the market is demanding. Personally, when I equate customers to market. That's just as basic. So when you are saying market, my market equals the customers.
Yeah.
So so as an agile business, or agile business as the case may be, looking at the environment that you find itself, the truth is that the people you may be providing services to or selling to prior to now as a non-essential service provider, their purchasing power must have dropped.
Yeah.
You understand? So Nigerians, they don't like to lose status. You understand? So as a business, if you can help them maintain the status in a way that is sustainable, maybe you partner with a finance house and say you can still get this status, while you pay
by a period of time.
Nigerians typically don't love to lose their status. You understand? They love to improve on it. So as an agile business, you want to look at your market, the dynamics of the market, what is changing per time, or maybe the demography of your market has now even completely changed. You understand? And then what that then means is that you need to start rejigging your strategy so you can push your product to the the new demography that could possibly attend to your product or the service. Do you want to look at the non-essential and say maybe you want to also create multiple segments of your customers or your market, as the case may be, and say, okay, this maybe a reduced price, maintain the premium and all that. All those conversations are born out of your ability to understand what is going on in the market, and this report is one report that will help you, do that assessment, as a business, and then go back to the drawing board and say, okay, this is how I now want to play. So every business needs to maintain agility for survival. No record has it that 98% of agile business at their startup phases, they survive. But if you are very static to your strategy, hey, this is the way, in quote, people of the faith will say, this is the way the Lord gave me this idea. I don't want to dilute it. Some of those conversations may actually lead to the death of the business, because the truth is that what keeps the business running is your cash flow, and your cash flow is definitely coming from your market. Your market is your customer. So it is what will influence your customer to really drop the cash that you should be doing as a business partner.
I mean, in Nigeria, like you said, you have to run a business that is very, customer centric. And it's not only in Nigeria, generally you need to run, but particularly in Nigeria, like you said, we're very status sensitive, very, very, very status, we're very, very status sensitive. One of the things that when we saw the data from the report, one of the things that surprised us was the correlation between earning and education.
True.
And we saw how it kind of also affected what people then prioritize, because right after essential, education seemed to be one of the things that Nigerians want to spend the money on the most. What are your thoughts?
No, I wouldn't say it's surprising, because that is basically consistent with the World Bank data. You understand, particularly for Africa. The number one thing that Africans spend their money on is food.
Yeah.
You understand? And then after that, we have healthcare and education competing. You understand? Healthcare, education, you know. So looking at the report is actually really, consistent with the expectation to say that, look, after settling the stomach, in this part of the work, we believe that education is the key to, giving you access to financial liberality. You understand? And if you can make that investment, so we see education as an investment to financial liberality. You understand? So, and that is basically the way people think it through, no matter the status, except for the very few that doesn't really have privilege to invest.
Is that
in
changing?
education. So I would say it's changing a bit. You understand? Because the dynamics of looking at the generation, I'm still very young. During our generations, the effort we put into getting education, that kind of seems to have dropped, maybe because of the kind of models that we now have in the society, and then the younger ones are beginning to see pictures where you don't necessarily have to really get education. You just need to solve problems and then make people laugh, and then you get your money. You understand? And you see, people going the shortest cut, to financial liberality than choosing education. But where we're coming from, education seems to be, the route to financial liberality. Then you understand? You want to liberate yourself for life. You then have to get education. But like I said, while that is changing, government has to be pragmatic. Do you understand? Because whatever you are doing without education already has a cap.
I was I was literally coming to the question about what needs to be done in a society that seems to be paying less attention to proper education, because education does not end with the four walls of school, right? But I think it's that very strong desire for for structured learning. That's how I like to put it, structured learning. And the exact thing I was going to say to you was that both of us are employers of labor. This data is showing us that there's still an appetite for education.
True.
Even though when we drill into the data and we look at the different age groups, we can see what exists in people, majority of the people below the 30, and when you compare it with people who are above 30, but there's still an appetite for it. The question now is, for a society with a median age of about 17, 18, where those people around that median age, are having a dwindling appetite for education, how do you think, we can rescue the situation, right? And in our present time, from an African and global perspective, because I think that's a coin of two sides, right? Globally, right? What are your opinion about the perception when it comes to education? Like you already know, people are starting to de-emphasize programs like MBAs.
True.
But we also recognize that in Africa, right, we are still, majority of the economies in Africa, if not all of the economies in Africa, are emerging economies.
True.
So if there's anybody that needs the education the most right now, is the people in the emerging economy. But we're in a global village. From your own perspective, what do you think needs to be done, right, to ensure that we adapt our education to what is needed in today's world without throwing the baby with the bathwater, if you get what I mean?
Thank you for that question. And I think is a challenge to you, myself, everybody in leadership, and also in governance. The example of Singapore, and the Asian giants actually comes to mind. You understand? What is happening in those economies is not an happenstance. It's not by coincidence. It was years of strategic planning, of envisioning the future, building it into their curriculum, empowering their people to take places, in the vision. You understand? And I think for us as a nation, the challenge we may have, or us a continent. It's the fact that we've not been able to get a clear picture of where we are going. So there is no clear picture of the education we need. You understand what I'm trying to say? So you don't know where you're going, so you don't really know what you need to get there. You understand? And so that then makes it look as if the current curriculum is not helping. Because if somebody has emphasized that we'll be where we are today, the curriculum would have been
changing.
You understand, to help us, really maximize where we are today. So I think it all starts from vision. Like the way I do in my organization, I look at, okay, what opportunities am I hoping to unlock in the next 2-3 years? And then that guide my training,
your L&D
learning and development
programs.
Do you understand? Because I want my people to be able to use that education to unlock those opportunities in the next few years. The same thing happens to every nation. So if you have a clear vision of where the nation is going, then your curriculum should reflect that. But when addressing the issue of the younger generation learning from wrong models and not finding need, for education again. And that's where I think government policies can come in. Do you understand? We've seen it where government policies, if well crafted, no matter how much money you are making from the informal sector, there is a particular level of access to opportunities you can get in the economy without education.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And that is where, I really think that even from the position of leadership, we need to raise the bar. You understand? Like, local government chairman as that today maybe is Kusat. You don't understand?
I mean, that's what the Constitution says.
The Constitution says. So we need to kind of raise the bar and then make it more necessary for people to get education. So policy has to drive this change.
Very interesting. We talked about, the office, L&D in the office, preparing for opportunities and the future. One of the things that we saw was driving education is the appetite for digital skills.
True.
Some of the models, some of the opportunities that is, driving people away from, what the millennials, will consider as a majority of the millennials.
We're done with millennials now.
Yeah, no. Well, and in a few years, we're going to be done with Gen Zs. We'll be talking about General Alpha. What is interesting is that, I like to say that the more things change, the more they remain the same.
True.
I foresee Generation Alpha being a more inquisitive and education-driven generation than the Gen Z,
because they will see the limitation of Gen Z.
They will see the limitation of Gen Z. The parents of a lot of the Generation Alphas are millennials.
True.
So they did not overfeed. They feed them with the content that are not appropriate. Their parents are more sensitive to what they watch. So I'd opine that a lot of the Gen Z, watched entertaining content when they were young. A lot of the Generation Alphas are watching educational content
because
our parents are insisting. Yes, they are modifying. They want you to watch number boxes. They want you to watch all the
phonics.
Yes, they're forcing you to do all those things, so it becomes second nature, right? You'd look at even millennials, the things you couldn't say at age 2, you find the Generation Alphas already knowing those things. So I mean, I often allow the Gen Zs to breathe. And I say that they are the first fully digital generation.
True.
So let's be very sincere. They're like a pioneer generation, so to speak.
Experiment.
And they're going exactly. They're the experiment. And what's driving this question is what you said about for you when we compare what's happened in Asia. You're looking at what you want to be tomorrow, and then you start to plan for it. Now, we have a situation, right? Now, with the rising adoption of digital skills, remote work, right? What sectors or industries do you see driving development, employment, growth in the economy in the coming years? Because, interestingly, right, Generation Alphas
are the people born from 2010. So it means as at today,
You're barely.
they're 15 years already. They are teenagers. In 3 years' time, going by Nigerian education standard, some of them are going to be graduates.
Sure.
So it means that a fraction of Generation Alpha, we've lost them to, a curriculum that is probably not very best suited for
Sure.
the present work environment we have. So the question is, right, what sectors and industries should we be focusing on to be able to drive real growth, to be able to drive development, to be able to drive employment growth in Nigeria?
I play in the consulting space, and what we've basically seen is that technology is a factor for scaling. You understand? In anything you're doing. And whether you're selling clothes or you are selling food, or you're in the agricultural sector, or you're in the banking sector. So we've identified technology to be an enabler. So any economy that is very serious about growth and scaling the fundamentals of its sectors has to invest in technology, number one. Number two is that you have to invest in technology education. You understand? So what am I saying now is that gone are those days that you have computer department as a course. It should be integrated into every courses. I don't know if you understand.
Yeah, all the courses should have
technology
integrated.
In there, you understand? So every educated Nigerians, should be equipped with the technology side of whatever they are doing, whether edutech,
microbiology,
anything you are doing,
zoology.
Because technology has
food science
to be an enabler for scale.
You
understand? So if you are very interested in growth, as an economy, then technology has to be an integral aspect of your curriculum, starting from the primary education. So start building the foundation of technology from primary, consolidate on it on the secondary education. And when you get to technology, you go into the specificity of the technology of the course you are taking, so you can maximize it. You understand? And you also, from the numbers from the MBS, you see that, the tech boroughs are the one, really contributing a greater deal to the progress we are making in the economy. The GDP figures. And so technology is key. You understand? And we are Africa. We are not Europe. Do you understand? Our greatest strength will still be our natural blessings. You understand what I'm trying to say? There is no agriculture. There is no other place that agriculture can thrive like Africa. That is still your greatest strength. You understand? So that is it's like you walking in your natural terrain. If you want to copy what they're doing in Europe, you will struggle. You will need FDI to bring in their assets, to bring in their economy, to bring in their know-how. You pay royalty to them and all that. But the space of your natural growth is the place of your strength, which is agriculture. You understand? So look at the way the Asian guys are doing it. At the very tender age, they identify their strength as a nation, and everybody's participating in it. Whether you're in primary school, you are doing agriculture. Where you're doing this, you're doing that. You understand those kind of conversations. Having identified your strength, everybody must have an appreciation, knowledge about our areas of strength. And that should also be built into our curriculum. So that even if you graduate and there are no opportunity in your field of study, you can go back to your areas of strength. And begin to generate opportunity for yourself. You understand? And so agriculture, I said technology. Agriculture is our areas on that. And then mineral resources.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Africa is so blessed. Nigeria is so blessed with a number of them. You understand? Study of it. You understand? And it's time we now needs to think about incorporating the knowledge of our mineral resources in our curriculum. How we can process it ourselves. how we can make value out of them rather than exporting them and somebody else starts making value.
Yeah.
If it's a journey, I'm not saying that we are going to. So whatever the Ministry of Mining is doing, if it is not in sync with Ministry of Education, it's only going to be a short term. Because until all your people are equipped with the knowledge to maximize your natural terrain of opportunities, you are not.
We've not scratched the surface. Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's actually, a tripartite approach that, I can, from this moment, even see how it can begin to work. Technology in the middle, agriculture and mineral resources. Because one of the challenges with agriculture in Nigeria is majority are in peasant farming. It's not done at scale. Technology allows you to do agriculture at scale. With technology, with technology, you can reduce the wastage that they're experiencing. With technology, you can improve output, you can improve yield, and all of that. And then with technology, because when people talk about technology, there's a temptation to think about technology only from an ICT point of view, which is just a segment of, technology. One of our clients, recycle the waste in their manufacturing space. And one of the days we visited their factories, it has saved them so much money. They're actually hiding it. Yes, they are, because are
you sure this is not the business?
Yeah, they're like
the real business.
The amount they bought the machines that is helping them recycle blows their mind every time. Say, like, what were we doing? We used to have
all this while.
We used to have this big space of wastage, and now we've just solved the problem by we've solved the problem of dumping this waste somewhere. We've solved the problem, and we are now created an opportunity that is humongous, right? But that's the power of technology, right?
And education.
Because somebody is just constantly trying to solve the problem.
The like I said, there is there is a national policy or national culture that makes for this, and it has to be driven by the leadership. Do you understand? And the reason I'm saying this very carefully is that, as an household, you understand, if you are educated about agriculture, you understand, we should not be even thinking about agriculture in large scale for local consumption. We should be thinking about agriculture in large scale for export.
The interest is
that because every household is basically educated about how to maximize the backyard or do one or two things for them.
You know what is very interesting about that what I will now refer to as your framework is that I feel like one of our biggest challenge as a country is the ability to scale our ideas. I have a theory. One of the and my theory is this, right? And unfortunately, we've not done a research to be able to prove this, but I strongly believe in this theory that has not been proven. One of the things that has impacted prices of food in Nigeria, food inflation in Nigeria, right, amongst many other things, is the export of our food.
Sure.
In the last 5 years, Nigeria has experienced an unprecedented number of migration.
True. The demands over
there is a lot. I know somebody.
And the temptation for forest earnings.
Yes. You know what is even interesting? There are even people who are out there who are trading. I know someone who has made more than their monthly income by selling Nigerian food
to diaspora,
to Nigerians in diaspora. Bear in mind that these Nigerians in diaspora have the purchasing power to pay premium. So when you say that as a household in Nigeria, we need to recognize the opportunity at household level.
True.
The potential of agriculture so that it becomes a general buy-in to say, how do we preserve this? How do we yield more of this and all of that? what I am what the benefit of that is that, sorry, let me put it this way. We are already kind of doing that. One of my friends came to Nigeria from the US 2 weeks ago and went back. And recently I saw on his page, he had like 2 suitcases of different things from Nigeria. Dried catfish,
melon,
like a lot, including herbs, right? For family consumption. Here's my point. I can, of course, he posted some of the reactions that I got in his DM, right? You can see the reaction of other people in diaspora saying, oh, will you be my supplier and all of that. He's not trying to sell, but clearly there's a ready market for it. So I think at family level, there's already a recognition of the opportunity. The challenge is scale.
Yeah. So like I said, that education needs to be sorted. Like, how much do you and I know about mining our natural resources? We don't.
I actually don't even have interest.
Knowledge,
because I think that it's likely informal.
Identifying
apart from crude oil,
opportunity is a product of your knowledge base. Do you understand? And you cannot have these as natural opportunities around you without having the knowledge.
I see.
Do you understand? So if you are knowledgeable about mining, you can possibly see opportunities even in the center of Lekki here. But because you are not, but or you are knowledgeable about agriculture, maybe you are looking for an apartment that gives you a space where you can do some subsistence level of agriculture, improve your green environment, get some fresh air and still get output and all. But we don't have those knowledge. Do you understand? And you can see, if you look at what is happening in developed climate, you see technologies coming up even where you don't really need soil to plant crops. Let's say modified environment planting, you do this, you get what you eat and you move on. Like I said, people should be able to access their natural opportunities through education.
I want to talk about food. The report shows that, the average Nigerian spends, over 50% of their income on food and groceries.
While the average income is 100K.
Now,
you see the reason.
They
are only being frugal because if they spend 100%, they won't have transport.
Well, it so happens that transportation is the second thing they're spending, the most on. And I'll come back to that, because when it comes to transportation, I do not think that as a country we are moving in the right direction for transportation. But I think that there's a tough, we're in a very tough situation. It's a double whammy. There's a dearth of roads, while with the growth rate of our population, what we need the most is train, a very robust mass transit. But we'll come back to that. The issue of food, and of course, the issue of income is also something that is very interesting, because, and that's why Nigeria is a very complex market. 100K in Lagos might not cut it.
There's nothing to write home about.
100K in
maybe
Kwara, in Ekiti, in Ondo, you are definitely living a better quality of life.
True.
But what is staggering is to then see that across board,
almost
everybody still seem to be spending 50% of their income on food.
Yeah. So if you look at if you dive deep into the numbers, I don't have visibility, and if you look at Lagos, what you most likely see is that people in Lagos are much more earning above the 100K.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
And while people in the other
interstate
regions, are earning around that 100K, such that if you then look at the prices of this product in Lagos and compare to that, it may average to the 50%,
Okay.
across board. But let me say this about food. Do you understand? My mom would typically say something, say when food is sorted, every other matter can come in. But when food has not been sorted, no other matter can come up. You understand what I'm trying to say? I don't want to use the vernacular to say it now, but what I mean is that, look, we operate in an environment that the health sector is pretty very inefficient, and people are careful about eating so that they don't have to spend the scarce resources on
health issues.
You understand? And that then inform why people will always spend on food. You understand? And you look at other environment, it's strategic, while some other countries actually subsidize food so that to reduce healthcare costs. Do you understand? Because when people are well fed, you understand, you have less nutrition issue to deal with. You have less, you understand, and that's why you see sugar tax coming up. If you must sell sugar to my people, bring some money so that I can
put it in
build the diabetic hospital that will cater for them. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because there is a huge correlation between those two spendings. You understand? Nigerians have chosen the route of spending it on food, because healthcare can be much more expensive. Do you understand? If you want to see a consultant now, even in the public hospital, you will still cover some thousands of naira. You understand?
And the long waits.
Not to say of private hospitals and all that. So I think consistent globally, food will always be a number one, share when it comes to spending. Other issues like healthcare and education can then come in. So that average is only correlating with the fact that the earning power also vary. Assuming the earning power is constant, then that is when you will be really surprised.
I see.
About that.
I see. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we will talk about housing.
Sure.
It was one of the very interesting parts of the report.
Great.
See you after the break. All right. Thank you. I wanted to ask, what shocked you in the report?
Okay. I would say that I was not really shocked, you understand, but maybe I wasn't expecting that particular number, you understand. There's an aspect of the report where you asked people whether their lifestyles, the quality of their lifestyle has diminished or has remained the same or has been improved, as in the last 2 years, And it was a bit surprising to see the number of people that mentioned that their lifestyle has improved. Maybe about 16% of them, I am not sure the exact figure now, that said their lifestyle has improved. That kind of suggests that, if you're not careful, the media may be pushing a narrative that is not actually factual. You understand? And maybe because some voices are louder
than others.
I typically say this: in every economy, you will always have those circumstances. It is now how they are distributed that determines whether the economy is thriving or not thriving. So in any economy, you always have people that their lifestyle is diminishing. You always have the people that their lifestyle is static.
They're static.
You understand? And then you always have people that their lifestyle is improving. But the hallmark of a thriving economy is that more people, have their lifestyle thriving. A thriving economy gives people to save and build wealth. You understand? And that is what maybe, the statistic is not affording us, to say how many Nigerians can actually save and build wealth. You understand? And basically, I think that was a bit staggering for me to see it. I also think that, maybe the government then have a bit of work to do, to actually addressing some of the media channels that may be too loud, in the negatives, and also bringing some of this positive to those media channels.
There's, again, I have a number of theories. And this theory is one that gave birth to a practice that we have here when it comes to, which is policy marketing. We believe that when there's a policy change in government, value moves from one person
demography
to the other. You know,
one
when
sector
to another, one person to the other. There's value movement when when there are policy changes from government. And I often say that one of the importance of policy marketing is for the government to ensure that the movement of value is for the greater good
of
the people.
Yeah.
The question I then want to ask is, because that's also quite surprising, right? What opportunities do you think this tough government policies, what opportunities do you think it created for Nigeria or for Nigerians?
Okay, so I always look at it to say every challenging times or any situation that you find yourself that is not present or is always pregnant with opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
It is your ability to look inward and see, like I said, what makes for your ability to turn a challenge, to an opportunity is number one, you not being too emotional. You understand? And not being emotional and quickly understanding the current circumstances, because if you are a bit emotional, like many people may not like the way the election in Nigeria played out. Yeah. Maybe their candidate did not emerge winner and all that, and some people are still carrying that emotions that they are not really seeing the opportunity the environment is presented. You understand? So it takes you moving away from that emotions, as a Nigerian or as a business owner, and then look at issues objectively, you understand? And then say, what is the market saying now? You understand? And remember, I spoke about agility at the beginning, So that posture of agility to say, what is the market saying now? The moment you move to that zone, you start seeing opportunities. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And the moment you move into that zone, you realize that, okay, prices of things are way high.
Right.
What is opportunity in that? That means purchasing power of people have dropped. Maybe I should sell alternatives. Do you understand?
Yeah.
There could be potentials in alternatives for you. You understand? Oh, you've been selling gold wristwatch and all that. You can sell lookalike. You understand? And say maybe plastic. You understand? I'm just trying to say what alternative.
I mean, one example that even comes to mind is people have been constantly traveling out of town, for vacation, right?
Great.
Yeah, people want to go to resort now and say, yeah, I travel 4 times a year. Maybe I'm now reducing it to twice or once, and then I'll do more weekend getaway. It means that the resort is not making.
But if you are emotional, you won't see that.
You won't see the opportunity. But I'm really curious, right? For example, I think that one of the winners in the policy change is the transport sector.
Okay. Why do you think?
The formal transport sector. For example, there are companies that are private companies that now aggregate, do route planning, journey management, and all of that for companies. One of the things that happened is that less people now take their cars to work, and then now patronize those companies. There's, people now share rides and all of that. So I think that, and if you look at our previous conversation, transportation is one of the things people are spending money the most. So I'm like, the reason I drive my car to work is because it's comfortable. It drops me here and all of that. So these guys, they're also comfortable. I'm not going to run after a bus. It's just that my timing now has to change. So I have to work with a timing that works for them.
I don't have that flexibility any longer.
In the attempt for organizations to also give their employees buffers, they also then approach these companies and say, you know what, we have 50 people in our organization. some of them are staying in this area, and all of that. And then they designed the system and patronized these guys. So those are some of the people that I think, gained from the policy change. I think the fashion industry also gained.
So the truth is that, let me say this, people spent, remember that we've had series of inflationary impact in the economy, when, policies are changing, and things are coming up. And what happened is that, the response, the inflationary response to every change in policy, the immediate response is not actually the true inflation.
Yes.
You understand? Until, that policy settles. And then that is when you are able to, there's always a gestation period for you to measure, the real inflation impact, But the transportation section in Nigeria is, the people spend more on transportation because it's largely informal. Do you understand? So I look at it, a petrol price both from 120 to 1,000, let's even say, or 1.4 or 1.5. You understand? But the guy that is having 18 passengers in his cab change the fare from 50 naira to 500. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Assuming, there's a bit of regulation, control in that sector, government can possibly play a role and say, okay, this is the rate of inflation, your inflation, not like price control, because you don't want to control the market, but at least if it is better structured, unlike the same thing also pan across other sectors, like even food. You just realize, they've increased price and everything just times 3.
Yeah.
You understand? And 3x. And you're wondering what is the correlation?
Yeah.
So there's the place of also people maximizing the turbulent situation that we experienced, rather than measuring just the real, inflation impact. So people had to spend. Every time there's an increase in petrol price, there's almost like times 2 in the price until they got to the point that people are just be going with your boss.
Yeah. Movement has
you understand?
kind of reduced because,
understand.
people went to hybrid systems. Some organizations reduced the number of times that,
including myself and yourself.
Yeah. Well, we were already at, we're already low. We're already doing 2 times a week. And like, it didn't just make sense to reduce it. But I know organizations that went from like 3 or 4 to then saying we're doing 2 or just 3 in a week. Yeah.
I know of an organization that does once in a month.
Once a month.
So I work for the organization. So the employee only come to the office once
a month. Interesting.
You understand? So,
but let me drill in a little bit on that. One of the surprising things that we discovered in the report, and I completely agree with you, there are a lot of opportunities that it's not obvious. This was particularly very surprising for us, and by querying it, we're starting to see why, it's most likely like that. The appetite of people for inverter systems. When you remove the essentials, I think inverter system is number 1. And I can say that one of the reasons is that if you're going to work, then you need constant power. So you might as well have inverter. Of course, there are other things that happen. The band A, the policy about tariff.
I was about to say that was largely, the conversation about renewable energy started before this government.
Yes.
However, with the introduction of banding system, for me personally, I'm of the view that, if you are saying you're a socialist economy and not a capitalist economy, that idea in itself is wrong. You understand? Because why will you ban me to a band C? Because I'm living in a particular zone. What if I can afford it? I don't even get on that.
I get what you're saying.
Like, okay, say I'm living in Ikorodu because all my activities are there and I'm generating value in that environment. So why should I be destined to a band C? You understand what I'm trying to say? So that policy has its own flaws. You understand? And we have a lot of people having makeshift homes in Ikoyi or Lekki that cannot even afford the band A. You In fact, they resort to stealing the power. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because they cannot even afford any band. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So that policy itself kind of get people, not impressed.
Yeah.
If I'm in Ikorodu, I've been already, bound to the feelings things to ban seed, then I have to look for alternatives. I have to embrace the renewables, try to get off grid, you understand, and all that. And the truth is that the conversation about off grid should be a national.
I was about to say that because it's part of what I would consider as our natural resources.
You understand? So that's what you have sun in its abundance.
Yes.
If you look at the Asian guys, you understand, you build a house. I think this is in Singapore or one of those guys. I'm not sure of the exact country now. You build a house and your roof, the government will come and rent your roof
For solar.
to put a panel on it, generate electricity for household. And then you pay for government for electricity. They pay you for renting your
roof.
your roof.
So you net off.
You net off. You understand what I'm trying to say? What are they doing? They are focusing their grid power for the industry.
Yes.
Do you understand? So if I can sort household needs with these natural resources that I have, then I can focus, and then prices of goods and services can come down. Do you understand? So, like I said, renewable is our beyond green. You understand? To the extent that we cannot accelerate our power generation from where we currently are, maybe how many workers?
5,000. Yeah, we're bordering.
You understand?
We're around that region.
If South Africa is doing over 30,000,
and they have like a quarter of our population.
You understand? If we cannot scale up that generation to like 800% of it in 2 years, time, we should be driving a national policy where every household is moving off the grid, one community after the other.
Yeah. And what is
including our market.
I know somebody.
There's no reason why our market should be on grid.
The question that
because market runs during the day.
That's a light bulb moment for me, because the best time to enjoy your inverter system is during the day, because as long as the sun is shining, you can power it of course to a certain capacity without the fear of you draining the reserve, which is the battery. Again, it goes back to what you said initially about the power of education. I know somebody who installed an inverter system about a year ago, but our life is completely better off for it. Got zero worries about utility from any organization. Quality of life significantly improve in terms of feeding, being able to plan your feeding properly, because now your fridge is constantly working. You even have to turn it off sometimes because it's constantly frozen. And the prices of these things also seem to be coming down. I know somebody who recently imported lithium batteries.
There's competition in this space.
Fraction. Where I'm going with this is beyond just asking everybody to go, the route of, or to go off grid rather. Right. What is the research that is going into it to make solar panels cheaper? What is the research that is going into it to ensure that lithium batteries are cheaper and affordable?
Go back to our conversation. Sun, natural resources, education around it. If your education is not capturing it, you will keep importing it. You will need forex. You understand? And all that. So if government as a policy has recognized that sun is one of our natural opportunities that we want to leverage, then you build the curriculum. People start learning it. Before you invest in a factory, a solar panel factory, you understand?
Yeah.
And then we begin to do this one household. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a immediate policy. You take it one community at a time, one estate at a time, one, you understand, and then you're able to do that.
Interesting. Let's talk about housing. This is one of the essentials. It's also one of the things that Nigerians are spending a lot of money on. So people are of the opinion that housing is actually cheaper in Nigeria when you compare it with other countries. When you compare it with Ghana, compare it with Kenya, when you compare it, of course, with developed economy. The housing is cheaper. The challenge is how we pay.
Yeah.
That's a school of thought. What was surprising for me is to find out that, of course, we understand that Lagos is a metropolitan city. But
Lagos and Abuja.
Of course, the ultra urban areas. But the southeast was one of the regions with the most expensive.
Shocker.
Yeah, it was a shocker. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I won't pretend that I wasn't shocked, you know,
Okay.
to see it, but I was also trying to rationalize it, to say, let's look at the entire real estate space. Who are the biggest player by ethnic region, ethnic demography?
Okay.
Looking at it from Lagos perspective, you will see the Southeasterners participating more, you understand? And then maybe you see some Southwesterners and all that. So from demography, the people that really play in the real estate space for business, you understand? Unlike our parents, they just build to live and additional flats, they rent it out. You understand? No, but for business, it's this Southeasterners guy, And so they were the people that were first business inclined when it comes to housing.
Real estate.
You understand? And looking at the profitability profile from Lagos to Abuja and all that. And, there's this narrative that, let's develop our region. So if they take such offering back home,
it has to make sense.
It has to make sense in a bid to develop their region and looking at the purchasing power of the people over there. So housing will definitely be something they are grappling with. You understand?
I see.
So look at it. If you are taking a 4-bedroom duplex, it's something you typically have around Lekki or Lagos, or to something of that standard to maybe Ari in where Abbas, you understand what I'm trying to say? And, looking at the earning power of the people, they may be deemed.
The Nigerian market is such a very interesting market. Sometimes I just want to say it defies logic. Guess where real estate
and understand what is happening.
But guess where it's cheapest?
Guess, go ahead.
South. You would have thought, is that majority of that area is not swampy areas? It's not more expensive to build proper housing in some of those areas?
You know that a lot of government fund is going to South, because that is the revenue center, and you look at the NDDC commission and the budget that is going into it. If you go back, investigate some of the projects of the NDDC, they are low cost housings, these are people that you are trying to make them find reason why there should be relative peace, you understand, and telling them that don't worry, you will have where to keep your head at this relatively cheap cost. And those are the activities of the NDCC, just to make sure that the people of that region are
they have a sense of satisfaction.
Yes, and so
I think if there's anything,
just rationalizing the numbers.
No. And that's the objective of the report, the ability for us to not generalize our numbers or make assumptions, for us to be able to query certain trends and find out what those trends are, how they are. I like the perspective you give about South, saying, South. And let me give you a bit of an insight into the number. North Central, 12.4% of income. Northeast, a troubled region, 11.3%. Northwest, 10.2%. Southeast, 13.2%. South, 9.8%. Southwest, 15.3%. Of course, we know that the Southwest number is probably very much influenced by Lagos, right? Now, my point is South at 9.8 is significantly low because the next person that comes close to South is Northwest at 10.2. And of course, we understand the peculiarities of the northern region, right? So for me, is the need for us to, if we don't understand the logic, the reasons behind our numbers, we will not be able to take advantage of the opportunities. We will not be able, and we will just continue to say the wrong things, to complain about things. Government will not be able to take the right decision because, for example, you just said that part of the projects of NDDC is providing low-cost housing and all of that. So it goes without saying that a government policy that is asking landlords to reduce prices or to do this or to do that without enough supply of housing, of course, subsidized by government, is dead on arrival.
Yeah. And also, a driver of cost is also the quality of housing. You understand? And you will agree with me that, when it comes to quality of housing, a bit in that Southwest, we're a bit
on the high side.
You understand? Maybe, in Southwest, the people in the bottom pyramid are people living in the face me, and you understand?
Face my slum, your face my face.
At the minimum,
understand? I guess you.
If you go into the northern hemisphere, you will see people just short odds and they are fine. You understand what I'm trying to say? It's something that, although it may be applicable in some region of the Southwest also, but when you move in the direction of the developed zones and all that, the taste for the quality of housing may also impact the number.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. It's been a very interesting conversation. But before we go, we're starting a culture on this podcast where, as a guest, you leave a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is. So there's a book in front of you with a pen. Please write your question there, and I will ask the next guest on the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.
Okay, the question has to be connected with this report.
No, any questions. Any question you might want to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been a pleasure having you.
Do I have to do that now?
Yes, please. You have to do that now. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
having me.
Thank you for the time. Really, really, really do appreciate you and for the insights that you've shared. We're definitely still going to collaboratively work on this report that will be released very soon. Thank you very much.